Party Moses back again. Please excuse the abrupt beginning of this episode, but we left off sort of abruptly in the last episode, and we're going to start this one with a quick battle between the Army of Tennessee against the Army of the Sassash, Mississippi. So we're just going to head right into it. We have been interrupted in our preparations back east attending to the Peninsular Campaign with the news that the Army of the Mississippi is in contact with the Army of Tennessee. My orders are, of course, to engage. So I'm going to have the 1st and 2nd Corps of the Army of the Tennessee confronting the Army of the Mississippi. They've got 27,000 men. We're going to have something. We have about 42,000 between the Army of Tennessee and the 2nd Corps. So this should be a decent battle. Let's see. Battle of Corinth, Mississippi. Looks like we're on probably what would be the Shiloh battle map. Yep, Shiloh Church right here. Not the greatest battlefield in my opinion, but what are you gonna do? So I've got to wait 3 hours for Kearney to show up, and that's fine. And again, the AI is deploying somewhat aggressively. So the choice, again, is either to confront them straight away. Get rid of this HQ thing. They do have superior manpower, but I'm willing to bet, yeah, most of these brigades are almost broken. And so once again, if I want to be extremely aggressive, as Grant often was, I should just deploy right here, send my infantry up, and just blast these guys to ruin. If I want to be a bit more conservative, I should deploy closer to my position, let them exhaust themselves even more, and try to maneuver Kearney when he arrives to cut off part of their retreat and maybe actually inflict a lot more casualties on them. Because the thing is, right now, if I move very assertively, if I run up and just rush them and break their infantry really quickly, as I could do, I already have a pretty big morale advantage, an 18-point morale advantage. And if I break one or two of their brigades, I'll inflict a few hundred casualties and they'll withdraw. And I won't be able to chase them as they withdraw. So the other option, even though it's less aggressive, is more strategically sound to allow them to make a move onto my position here and possibly inflict more casualties against them. It also allows time for Kearney to arrive. But, it's a little bit more boring. I don't have a good field of fire with any of my artillery. Shiloh famously actually had no artillery activity whatsoever. None at all. There were too many trees in the way. They didn't have a good field of fire. No artillery whatsoever. And Robinson over here is our boy with the Jocelyn rifled carbines. So hopefully we get to see these guys in action pretty soon. But yeah, so I'm going to have Robinson. I'm actually going to just bring the whole division. I'm going to have Robinson sort of deploy up here. I'd like him to keep an eye on Confederate troop movements. I'm actually going to have him move pretty close. Yeah, I'm going to have him keep an eye on Confederate troop movements. What I'm likely going to do is just I'm going to pre-detach all of my artillery first. Because again, this is going to be fairly useless in this battle. And deploy my infantry in single lines. Except for Crook, he's got 3 brigades. And yeah, so again, not super duper exciting. I'm hoping this way I can inflict more casualties, which is what I want. But we will find out, I suppose. Let's get started. Deploy some scouts over here from the cavalry. And I mean, this is going to be hours. We're going to be sitting here for hours just watching them move a little bit. They're going to clump up along the road. They're going to move pretty slowly. I really wish it wouldn't do that. I want to bring my brigade all the time. They should move pretty quick because they're getting orders from Wallace, which is right next to them. And they're actually moving a lot more efficiently than I would have given them credit for. Pause here real quick. They are moving much faster against me than I expected. So I am just going to withdraw Robinson all the way back to my main line. I'm going to get him out of there pretty quickly. I'm going to give him double time orders. So I do not want him to get into a general engagement. He'll be cut off, and they have a lot of cavalry. This does mean I won't really have too much vision on what they're doing, but I mean I can see what they're doing. They're going to be coming up from a variety of different ways. And many of them are going to be coming right down the main line. So let's get Doubleday up here, and let's get Crook up here as well. And yeah, we're going to have a few Secesh brigades coming down the Corinth Road. And I'll have Hancock's brigade, or Hancock's division, challenge them. You know, in fact, if they're going to be hurling their cavalry forward, we might end up not being able to inflict too many casualties in any case. Because if their cavalry is coming forward unsupported, it'll be, you know, they'll be just as scattered and just as overpowered by my infantry here that can deploy pretty quickly. So we'll see. Artillery's opening up. Good for them, I suppose. I have no idea why it's saying they're under artillery fire. There's nothing that the Confederates have that should be able to even hit me from anywhere. I don't know why it's telling me that. I'm going to move Kimball back because they will definitely be cut off over there. I don't want them to be. And again, excuse the performance of my PC. It is not good. Broken Rights Brigade. $200 casualties so far. Let's pick up a little bit on the speed. End of day. And okay, yeah, there we go. Kearney has arrived, way too far away to be at all useful in the course of this battle. And we, of course, don't have deployment zones that meet up, which means that, again, Kearney is just going to march alone down the wilderness in the jungle and not be any use at all in this entire battle. So that's too bad, but, you know, what are you going to do? And you know what? Like, this is whatever. I'm just gonna start the battle. There's not much more planning or prep that we have to do for this position. The Confederates are just going to attack us, and we're going to throw them back. Now, I'm a little bit worried because if I obviously didn't. I maybe should have actually stacked up kind of close to their initial deployment, because Grant's army is now pretty significantly outnumbered, at least in this engagement. And I'm worried that they've had time to recover their morale, so it might not be quite so easy a time as I was expecting it to be. Going again, basically up against their broken units all the time. And now I'm going to I'm going to abandon my guns. They're just not worth dragging around. Let's get the 3rd Division on the way. And we'll get the 2nd Division up here near Shiloh Church. Move them here. This might have been a really bad... this might have been a very poorly thought out strategy. This might be a loss. I might actually have to withdraw from here. And I'm going to bring Robinson back over here to support these guns, because I feel like their cavalry is going to try to come after them. I want the 3rd Missouri to concentrate on Pender's regiment. And I need you guys to get a move on, please. So I've just moved this infantry brigade into square formation because they're being threatened by this cavalry. Now, I've never actually done this on the battlefield before, necessarily, for this purpose. But I have noticed that the 1.07 patch has... I think they've tweaked the sort of morale costs for cavalry charges, and the enemies seem to be a lot more likely to hurl their cavalry forward in reckless charges. Which obviously ain't super great if you're on the receiving end of it. So I just want to be careful. Get you to halt. And I just want you to turn. Yeah, definitely halt. Jeez. Cavalry is on the way back. Good for them. Broken a cavalry brigade. That's good. 3rd Missouri is doing just fine. I want to repel Polk's brigade if I can. See, I didn't want to get involved in a melee. This could end up being really bad. Alright, 3rd Michigan needs to wheel and fire on... I think it's Pender's brigade here. Right? Oh, we broke them. That was the 1st Wisconsin's heroic charge against Polk's brigade. Well done. I was legitimately nervous there for a moment. Yeah, we might actually be forcing them to withdraw. That is pretty terrific. These guys out of square formation into line. So, you know, if Eliakim P. Scammon, if Scammon doesn't end up being, you know, made famous behind that charge, we'll all remember that he was. That was terrific. Charges are really, they're a roll of the dice. They really are something you really can't rely on. Because the morale in a charge, as it should be, in my opinion, is very fragile. It's extremely fragile. And it's very easy for even strong, well-led, well-motivated infantry brigades to get like very quickly demoralized and broken behind charges. And one of my favorite quotes by military commanders about bayonet charges actually is from Winfield Scott, and it's from Winfield Scott's experience in the War of 1812. He was talking about the Battle of Chippewa. The Battle of Chippewa was one of his sort of famous victories. If you've heard you may have heard the anecdote um, about the American soldiers in the War of 1812 who were wearing gray coats, and the enemy commander saw them through his field telescope, and he said, "Oh, those are mere militia." And it turns out, no surprise, they were actually regular soldiers, and they fought exceptionally well. And so the enemy commander, Phineas Ryle, who's got an awesome name, apparently uttered, "Those are regulars, by God!" And it's this sort of, if you're into American military history, you may have heard of it. But that was the Battle of Chippewa, and that was Winfield Scott was the commander of that. And the Battle of Chippewa ended with a bayonet charge by the Americans that repulsed the British. And one of the things that Winfield Scott said about this bayonet charge was that it is not in human nature that a conflict like that should last many seconds. And the idea behind that was essentially like, as soon as the bayonets come out, as soon as there's bayonet charging to be made and there's melee fighting and hand-to-hand combat, it doesn't last long because the morale is just so fragile that one side or the other break very quickly. And the way that this game actually does that morale breaking for following infantry charges is, I think, it's very consistent with the sort of historical writing about infantry charges, which I think is really cool. All right, if we can break Anderson's brigade here, I'm actually gonna have Robinson snap up these guns. So I'm gonna have Barnes. I'm gonna turn him into medium range, and I want him to get up in Pender's face and hit him as hard as we can. Gonna move Brooks up as well. First Minnesota is already coming up. They're gonna put fire on Anderson's brigade. We've inflicted 2,800 casualties so far. That's pretty good. And they've got quite a few brigades that are still in pretty good shape on the field over here. So we're not out of the woods yet, but we're doing pretty well. And we've got them at a point now where we can really start inflicting some casualties. So, okay, I changed my mind. I'm not actually going to charge up with my cavalry because there's too many infantry units nearby, and I would just end up getting my cavalry killed. Artillery is very likely not doing anything. We've driven Pender's brigade away, Pender's regiment out of there. Move Barnes up to take this artillery. And let's increase speed a little bit. Now, like always, I'm very greedy, and what I want most of all, most of anything in the world, is enemy guns. I want to snack on enemy artillery. So again, we're still probably going to stick at a minor victory. If they disengage, you know, we might actually be able to catch them with a few of my infantry brigades if they start moving a little bit more quickly. But I'm sure all I'm doing is just making the road jumble worse. Let's get the Jocelyn carbines in action. At 10 rounds a minute. That's reasonably accurate. I think that's reasonably sort of an authentic rate of fire for their kind of reload in the breach. The breach action is actually quite similar to some of the later models that the U.S. Army adopted. So the trapdoor breech loading system, they ended up making the trapdoor Springfield in 1873, the main arm for the United States Army. That had about 13-second rate of fire. And I mean, the Jocelyn is brass carbine, breech fed, rim fire brass cartridge. And so I think about 10 is pretty accurate. They were certainly better rifles than the Halls, but that's not a very high bar. And they've still got about a division over here, just sitting there doing nothing. And they're already withdrawing, so I doubt I'm going to be able to inflict too many casualties against it, but it is something. I do have a lot of units over here. I can put a lot of fire on them if I get moving. Getting some good experience over here for Colonel Robinson. See if we can capture these guys. They are broken. I doubt I'm going to capture them. I haven't even inflicted any casualties on them from the charge. Oh, there we go, 50. Over here. Just, go after them. You're not going to do anything. I know they're not going to do anything. But you might as well actually give it a shot. Because if I could scoop up 1 or 2 brigades to surrender, that would tick this over to a major victory. Which would be pretty sweet. See if we can at least get those guns. See if we've even inflicted any more casualties. A couple hundred more. Just from these repeated charges. That's pretty good. Get some good experience for my cavalry here. The enemy don't seem to be quite as airbendy as they usually are. And I'm guessing I've got within 15 minutes I can capture this battery. Up to 5,000. So again, a few hundred. I've grabbed their guns. Yeah, that's going to be about all she wrote for this battle. Minor victory. Pretty good experience for everybody. Um, the strategy ended up being a bit more sound than I expected it to be. I thought for a while there I'd made a grave error, but no, it turned out okay. 5,500 casualties out of 31,000. Pretty good. Well, moderate casualties for me, 1,000. Pretty good for only being able to use one corps. Captured 3,000 rifles, 17 guns from the battlefield, and we paroled 1,300 enemy troops. So victory at Corinth. Another pretty decent setback for this Army of the Mississippi. We're whittling them down. So we've got 26,000 men, 2,300 casualties. That's pretty good. Cray's army over here actually has some men in it, so I'm actually going to be just super aggressive. I'm going to move down with George Thomas here and get them involved. This telegraph is a little less than a quarter finished. Things are looking pretty good. I think, well, let's see what happens over here with Thomas. If these guys move away, I'll end the episode there. If they don't, we'll fight another quick battle. Let's see what happens. The French repulsed. Battle, oh, yeah, Cinco de Mayo. So Cinco de Mayo is actually, it's based on this, on the Mexican army beating the French army. You know, there's an interesting little factoid. All right, come on, George Thomas. Move them down. Looks like they are going to fight. So let's just very quickly get in there and do it. Battle of Columbia. Facing McCrae's army under command of Duncan K. McCrae with a strength of some 5,000 men and 0 guns. The enemy army is green. Their morale is determined. The supply state of our army is outstanding. So we are attacking. We belong over here. We have been shoved in this corner, but we've got a pike that we can march down pretty quickly. And again, I'm expecting them to probably have entrenched up here over by the objective. And I mean, I have a modest advantage in manpower. I do have artillery. They're only 6-pounders, so that's not super great. But let's get started. Let's get our cavalry division out here to scout. Make sure there's no nasty surprises waiting for us after they start moving. I'll get Tyler's division to march up as well, just to get out of the woods. So again, we're under the commander of the division commander, John McClernand. John McClernand, again, was an Illinois Democrat that Lincoln gave a command to, mostly to help sway the southern Illinois Democrats, the secessionist sympathizers of various kinds. Southern Illinois was settled. A lot of people who lived there had actually come from places like Kentucky and Tennessee and other southern states, and they sympathized with the idea that, you know, the war was started and at the behest of abolitionists who were being just really unfair to all the people that owned slaves, even if those people didn't own slaves themselves. So McClernand was sort of one of these kind of political almost rivals that Lincoln had, that he decided to give a political command to. So again, I've talked a little bit briefly about political generals and the sort of myths and other kind of beliefs about political generals versus, you know, West Pointers and things like that. McClernand was very clearly a political appointee. He was done strictly for political reasons, and you know, he was okay. Quite a few of the people who were appointed politically ended up being just fine, but he was definitely one of the men who was very, very, very clearly a political appointee. And I mean, like, we can even talk about Grant too, as we're just whopping along here. We talk about Grant. You know, he received his colonelcy of his Illinois regiment mostly because of his friendship with the governor, and the governor was trying to get him a command. So even though Grant was a West Pointer, even though Grant had military experience prior to the start of the Civil War, you know, there is we can, to a great extent, say that even Grant's position that he ended up getting in the Army of the Tennessee came from his political friendships and political relationships. And that's just not what most people think of when they think of political generals, because they think of guys like McClernand. They think of guys especially like Sickles. And they think of all these people who just like should never have worn a uniform. But the thing was that the Civil War was a war that was fought with the belief that it's the citizenry that fight the wars. It's not the army. The army is an extension of the citizenry, and it's under the control of the citizenry. And I think it's really important to remember that, because that's not how we think about war today, right? And we have examples of like W.H.L. Wallace, who we've talked about a little bit before. And W.H.L. Wallace, again, was one of these like consummate citizen soldiers. When he found out that war was being declared, he went and started reading books about it. He'd had some experience in the Mexican War, but he was certainly no like division commander at the start of the war. But he got there because he was a good student. He was thoughtful. He was motivated, and he was committed to the cause. And you will not win wars without that. And I think, almost all of American 20th century wars are a testament to the fact that if you don't have the citizenry behind the war, it's not going to go as well as you want it to go. And that's sort of the difference in the political mind between the 19th century and the 20th century, is that in the 20th century, many people just believe that the army can go and do the thing you need it to do, and it's become estranged from the citizens' responsibility and duty, because we don't really think about social duty at all anymore. And that was something that was kind of an obsessive thing for the 19th century citizen of the United States. But I've rambled enough. Let's just, I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to increase the speed, and we're going to deploy over here across Little Creek, and we're going to engage these guys. Like I've got decent sighting for my artillery here. I'm not expecting it to do an awful lot, but just put some fire on this cavalry here is enough for now. Get some experience for the gun. And like always, I'm going to put it on bombardment. Fire over here at this clump. Got my infantry over here to support, and I'm willing to wait a bit before I engage generally. I'm probably not going to be able to finish this battle before the day ends. I'm very unlikely to do so, but we'll see. Let's see, oh, no, they can't fire. I'm on fire at will, and I'm going to bring them over here. There we go, end of day. I wouldn't be surprised if the enemy just withdraw, but we'll see. Move my guns a little closer. And the terrain here is goofy. I feel like I should have a cleaner line of sight. There's not too many folds in the road or nothing. I don't know why it's being so pokey. Yeah, and they've withdrawn into the woods. So, all right, we'll move up to this cover by the railroad. I'm going to even move Sykes. I doubt he'll get there in time to do anything, but I'm going to move him anyway. And I'm going to order my cavalry to pull their scouts in. I'm going to order them to dismount and go into loose order. And I'm going to advance through the woods. And I'm going to hit Kershaw. And I'm going to bring my infantry up into the woods on the other side and engage Tappan. Wait till that unit gets moving a little bit, and then I'm going to move Kenley up to support. pretty neat little flanking movement here. Maintain this kind of clear line of sight for the artillery. I mean, sort of clear. You know, a tree affects it pretty badly. We got them basically fired on by all angles, from all angles. Yeah, that's a quick break. My Ohio cavalry somehow, they broke. They became unstable instantly thereafter. See if moving Thomas a little closer to him might make a difference. No, their cavalry is gone. Again, they got the airbender factor. They're out of there. It would be lovely if we were able to capture this brigade, but it's not going to happen. I feel like mechanically it's impossible now. Look at that. That's so absurd. I know I'm going 10 times speed, but they move so fast. Maybe I'll crunch them after all. I don't think I inflicted a single casualty from either of those charges. Nope, still 300, and now they're caught. See, they're just stuck. They're not moving. Other infantry. Yep, that's it. There's no point in chasing him down. But yeah, that is definitely a thing that they have tweaked specifically. I feel like to make it as annoying as possible. There's just no way that you can catch up to routing units like that anymore. There just isn't. You know, it is what it is. Victory at Columbia. Captured 331 rifles and 0 guns. 148 enemy soldiers have been paroled. So Colonel Haskin, he is the colonel in charge of the, I believe is the Illinois Cavalry, or the Ohio Cavalry. Had that tiny blip, that one little blip of panic that lasted a second. And he has been disgraced, which is too bad. So I don't know that we've ever actually had a defamation here in this campaign. So the last thing I'll do before I end this episode here is show you a little bit about what that means. So if you just look on, let's advance time just a bit. And now we'll pause because I don't want any interruptions here. So we have now unhappy. This little red star says that we're unhappy, which means that we have to look at which of our brigades are unhappy and why. Sometimes it's supply, sometimes it's operating in wet weather, sometimes it's a variety of other things, right? But we want to make sure we figure out why. So if you go up here and look at morale, it'll open up this info panel and it'll show you 3rd Ohio Cavalry is unhappy with Colonel Haskin because Colonel Haskin has been defamed. So if I want to get rid of this unhappy thing here, now it's only affecting us by less than 1% of our morale. So I can either try to find another commander. Colonel Haskin turns out to be somebody nobody likes. You know, he's a West Pointer. He's a artillerist, whatever. He's not very good. I could try to find a replacement, right? It'll get rid of that 1% debuff. And there's probably some pretty good cavalry commanders that we haven't put in yet. August Willick looks really good. Sedgwick is all right. Hazen is okay. Right? We could do that, or we could wait until maybe Colonel Haskin can redeem himself. I'm going to do that for now because, again, we're only getting a less than 1% decrease in our morale for this army. So I'm okay with that. And I want to keep the army a little bit more stable for now. So I'm going to move Thomas back to Nashville. I don't want him to stray too much, because I really don't want him to tangle with these larger armies that are down here. The Army of East Tennessee here, that's another 4,100 men. I'm going to need to give Thomas more men, for sure. And lastly, we've got a policy coming up here. So I was looking a little earlier too. Now, the Regulars Act is always pretty attractive. You get, I think, 5 or 6, you get basically a good division. You get 4 or 5 brigades of infantry, all with perks and good training. It's pretty good. It lowers your military experience by a few, but we have a lot of that. But we also have the Breadbasket 1 and 2, and that will open up the Northern Routes Act. And that means that we invest in transportation infrastructure along the northern trade routes, which increases the transport capacity of canals and the Great Lakes by 50%. Production demand of crops also by 25%. But it lowers our number of volunteers from Midwestern states because we need more boys out there farming. Now, if we do that, it should help to ease the transportation burden of transporting goods all the way here to the Chicago foundries. And it should help us move our iron and copper from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan here down to the foundries around, St. Paul and Chicago, that kind of thing. So it's something to think about. It's something I might go for, but it would also mean increasing our politics investment to get more policies. We don't have to do exactly right now, but it might be worth doing. But I think that's where I'm going to leave you for this episode. This was a pretty interesting one. Lots of movement here. And soon, we ought to be in a position where we're going to be moving pretty quickly down here toward Vicksburg. Now, historically, of course, they didn't capture Vicksburg until 1863, until July 1863, and it involved quite a big siege. But, we're in a different place. We're in a different spot. We haven't had nearly any of the setbacks that we've had before. The last thing I'm going to do is advance some time here. I want to wait until he captures Carrollton and see what it does to the... Oh, it's taking forever. And here comes the Missouri State Guard. All right, I'm going to leave you here because this looks like we're going to have a battle with Fremont's Frontier Division here. I can give them a Gatling gun. That might be kind of fun to try. But I'll probably just give them a 12-pounder Napoleon because that's... Only got 3 guns. How did that happen? I will give them a Gatling gun. So a captured Gatling gun over here to Fremont's Frontier Corps. I assume that they're going to capture Carrollton. It looks like Fremont's Frontier Corps here might get involved with the Missouri State Guard. As soon as I capture Carrollton, Arkansas, I'm actually going to march on the Missouri State Guard. And I'm really hoping that I can shift the front lines here a little bit. I don't think there's any reason that there should be this big chunk of Southwest Missouri. Still technically considered part of the Confederacy. I'd like to get that to switch over if I can. If not, I'm not going to be that worried about it. It's not terribly important. But while we wait for Carrollton to switch over, and that might have an impact on things, I'm going to come over here and take a look at the rest of this sort of theater of operations that we have going on here. So we have the Army of Kentucky. This is an independent corps under Major General George Thomas that is operating out of Nashville. He's only got 9,500 men. He's mostly been skirmishing with a small Confederate force that's currently parked and building a supply depot down here in Pulaski. We've got the Army of West Tennessee. It's also similarly building a supply dump, and they have an army of 6,500. And operating around here somewhere is, I believe, the Army of the Mississippi, which has about 20,000 men, and we've had a couple of battles with them so far. The Department of Missouri over here, Irvin McDowell has brought his headquarters company down here and is building a telegraph for us, which I'm hoping will shorten some of the order delays between Grant and Kearney here, the 6th Corps. I've also gone and renamed several of these. So I actually have the 1st, 2nd, 3rd Corps of the entire Union Army in the Army of the Potomac. I've got the 4th and the 5th Corps that are operating in the Eastern Theater. Then, of course, I've got the Army of the Tennessee, which has the 6th Corps attached to it and the 7th Corps attached to the Department of Missouri. I'll probably rename these several times, but I'm trying to keep the individual corps numbered as well, and I'll change these around quite a bit before next time. I'm not very organized. I'm not very organized about stuff like this, so you'll have to bear with me. But there we have it. So there's quite a lot to attend to. I've got some policies to go look at. Again, we were looking at breadbasket here. Possibly regulars might be another good one. We do have the Militia Act 4 researched, which means we ought to have quite a few more available. I have 102,000 volunteers available after researching Militia Act 4. So if I need to recruit more manpower, I can do that pretty easily. I've got just about a 20,000 or so man advantage against the Confederates. They have almost 200,000 men fielded. So I think I'm going to start being a bit more aggressive with my recruitment. I want to get the Army of Kentucky a little bit more squared away. Obviously, a big chunk of Tennessee is still in Confederate hands. I'd like to take this Cumberland Gap, and again, we talked about the Iron Mine over this way, and that probably means bringing another army from back east to start operating out of southern Kentucky, and I might actually make that an independent army operating over here. That would once again expand the scope of this entire theater quite a bit. And as we can see, after taking Carrollton, Arkansas, that has actually, again, kind of driven us away. And the Missouri State Guard is coming for us. Fremont has a poor supply situation, but the readiness is unaffected so far, and their ammunition is in pretty good shape. So I think if the Missouri State Guard is offering battle, I'm going to accept. And I'm going to engage the Missouri State Guard and hopefully capture the Fayetteville Depot. But we'll see. Here we go. I do have a couple of units with... I have several units with extremely low morale, and I have no idea why. Low food. Battle of Carrollton. Facing Missouri State Guard under Jerome B. Robertson with a strength of 5,000 men and 5 guns. Enemy army is green. The morale is confident. Supply state of our army is outstanding. It always says it's outstanding, and I have reason to be skeptical about that because as we have seen, I have 2 of my infantry brigades are very low morale. They are stable. Their fighting spirit is 66%. Their current morale is 41. So these guys will recover. They will very likely recover their morale before we start engaging. And this is my force with the Gatling gun. I'm not sure when this episode will actually be coming out, but last week there were a couple of other episodes from other YouTubers I follow, both of whom had some rapid fire pieces of artillery engaged in the battle, which I think is kind of a funny coincidence. So I think, given the state of my supplies and everything else, I am actually going to deploy defensively on this side of the bridge, and I want to place these Gatlings. Yeah, to cover this crossing. And I am also, not parapets, nope, breastworks. I'm also going to build some breastworks straight across here. I believe that's still a parapet. So nope, nope, nope. Okay, well, breastworks then. All right, that's fine. That's fine. I'm going to take my 4th Brigade, which unfortunately has not even been renamed yet. I'm going to have them across the river to do some scouting, and I'm going to leave my 1st Tennessee and my 2nd Tennessee. Part of the reason is because they're also Tennessee boys, so their fighting spirit is capped by state support, which apparently is 69%. That's pretty good for Tennessee. And we will get started. So 4th Brigade over here, Colonel Dix, gonna send some scouts. Once again, they're coming from this way, so they can either come down this road or try to loop around this way, but I assume that given the fact that I'm basically abandoning this victory point, I assume they're going to be coming down this road. That's why I'm sending my scouts over this way. Now, this actually might turn out to be a very bad idea. It's very possible that this is a very bad idea, and I'm going to get a lot of my men killed, and I'm going to, Fremont will be driven back towards St. Louis in shame. It's possible. I guess we'll see. I'll speed this along and report back when we got something to do. Okay, so we're back. Looks like the Confederates did come straight up this road, and I'm immediately hurling my skirmishers toward their guns, because their guns will chew up my Gatling guns probably pretty easily. It looks like they've probably got some 6-pounders or something like that. We'll see. But I'm going to use all 3 of my available skirmisher units to try to take on Patton Sr. over here. See if we can't push him away. Not sure what Dix over here is up to. There we go, some skirmishers. Once again, we got the skirmisher thing where they do not move as soon as they've been engaged. So we're basically just stuck forever skirmishing against their skirmishers. Time to pull them back. Try to bring them across the bridge. Right into our entrenchments. And our Gatling gun has already opened up. I'm not sure what it's opened up on. None of these guys seem to be in range, but, go for it. All you want. The enemy have captured Bridge Road. That's not a big deal. I'm not sure how they've been able to get across the bridge there without taking a single casualty. But go for it, I guess. That's not what I ordered. This might be a tremendously bad decision. So you get Lion to go over there and rally. I'm not sure why this other brigade is not firing. I'm not sure what is happening at all in this battle. This is a really interesting one. All right, well, Colonel William Hayes, that was actually an excellent decision. The charge was really good. Not sure why my Gatlings can't fire. They have a completely open field of fire. They've been firing at that before. Why Dix... I have no idea why Dix would be upset. So let's give him a rally as well. This was a really odd one. See if we can catch these guns with my skirmishers. All right, that was a very strange battle. It was a very, very strange battle. Minor victory, though. I'll take it. Victory at Carrollton. All right, so that seems to... Yeah, there's a couple, I guess, say, linchpin towns that seem to be affecting things. We got the Army of the Mississippi, or of Mississippi over here. And I believe that I might combine Fremont's Corps here with the 7th Corps. Turn that basically just into Fremont's, make that the 7th Corps or something like that. And get that to move on. So they have indeed burned down the Fayetteville Depot. And that means that my boy's got to retreat once again. So again, you know, this probably isn't worth it. Making all these little excursions down here, unless you're making a pretty strong effort to come here and capture some of these forts, which are worth it eventually, right? If you really want to. Especially if you want to move into, make some excursions into Texas, something like that, you know, that might be worth it. I'd like to take Little Rock. But I can take Little Rock by moving along the Mississippi here, and it seems like I can do that with a lot less risk and a lot less expense than getting my men to starve out here in the middle of nowhere. So we'll see. Otherwise, what's my intelligence about the Army of West Tennessee say? 6,500 men, no casualties. I wish I could see down this way. But while we're paused, let's take a look at policies again. We're close to being able to do emancipation, I think. Breadbasket might be good. Let's see if we've got any projects I want to work on. Recruit agents is an interesting one. This will increase our intelligence gathering. So I know before I was looking at workforce when I was actually meant to be looking at intelligence. This is the intelligence heat map. And you can see we've got a lot of concentration of it because we have armies over here that are like looking at stuff. It's way weaker over here, and it's almost non-existent even up by St. Louis. Similarly over here, where a bunch of my armies are operating, we've got tons of intelligence. And it seems to mostly be following the army around. Now that project is... It's $1 million out of my 1.8 that I have right now. That might be worth it. But let's check on some of our weapons orders. 17 days for more Jocelyn's. We've got our Springfield rifles have arrived. Another 50,000 would take 60 days and cost 23 million. My standardization is up to 32, and we're about $450 per rifle. We almost have enough captured Enfields to field a small brigade. It's pretty fun. Let's just look at rifled guns. Our 10-pounder Parrots. 4 days. We're close. We're very close. Cool. A few more days, we'll have some other weapons. Well, Fremont is going to wait 20 hours to get his orders. This is almost done. This telegraph station is almost done, so we'll see what that does about order delays there. It should be coming straight from Cairo. I'll probably have Fremont, when he gets back here, build a telegraph station in St. Louis as well. So again, you can kind of look at the telegraph lines, right? We don't even have one that goes to St. Louis. We've got one that comes up to Decatur and then straight down here to Cairo. And now we're coming down here to connecting it to Jackson, and I'll probably string this to Memphis as well once we have Memphis a bit more secure. I'm also 7 Corps here. How many days? 10 days, 3 days, 19 days. This is the 5th Missouri. 7th Illinois. This is like the 14th Pennsylvania. I've got a lot of Pennsylvania boys in uniform. I'm not super duper impressed with the Gatling guns, to be honest. Same brigade here, Andrews. We'll see. I do want to start recruiting some more men in this theater, generally. But let's see about getting this telegraph finished. And then I'm going to have McDowell head back up to Cairo. That appears to be complete. And this should give us nice comms reach all the way down here, and I will probably string one along, like I said, to Memphis here. So we got the Western Army, 9,000 men heading up here. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of coordinating movement happening with some of the other armies I can't see over here. But let's move McDowell back here to Cairo. Move him on the rail. Yep, and the Western Army is marching directly at me. Get him on the rails. So at least for Grant, this order delay does seem to be considerably lessened. That was only half an hour. Whether that'll extend to giving orders to Kearny's 6th Corps, I'm not sure. It looks like we're going to have another clash in here pretty quickly. Start off the episode with a couple little battles. I also wouldn't be surprised if this 6,000-man Western Army just turns around, goes home. This is 40,000 men is quite a lot for a 6,000-man army to deal with. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just, yep, turn around and go back home. I'm going to get at least one more infantry brigade. Take some Illinois boys. Can't believe a 4th Brigade. These are, I believe, this is only my first Kansas Infantry Brigade. The first Kansas, you know what? I'm going to give them... Give them the name of Jayhawkers, since that's what they are. Pounders. Let's see if I have their Jocelyn's. Again, just a few more days. So not quite. That's another 3,000 men or so. Should help that out. I'll probably give him a 2nd Infantry Division at some point. And it looks like, oh, they've got some unhappy men. That's because of the Ohio Cavalry. They're unhappy with Colonel Haskin because of his very blink and you'll miss it withdrawal from the last episode. Rearguard's still going. How's Fremont? Making a slow retreat. But again, because they've only got a few thousand men, this is a lot less painful than Kearny's march when he had about 12,000 men. And boy, I really wish I could... we have West Tennessee. I'm going to send Kearny up here. "17 days. I'm going to send Thomas down here as well. And it does look like that telegraph has actually fixed those order delays. That I think was a big part of it, because it's no longer taking 20 hours to get for orders to get to Kearny before he starts moving. And I know that there's another rebel force. This force over here, I think this is the one with the 20 or 30,000 men that's forming up. So I don't really want to be too hyper aggressive over here, but I do want my corps to mutually support one another. So I'm going to get Grant moving, and I might even have Grant cross the river. Seventh Corps, I think... I'm going to make him proper brigade, or proper corps strength. Get a decent... Need a decent division commander. Thomas Welsh looks pretty good. 3 administration. So I'm going to give him this infantry division. and a piece of artillery. Always get the Illinois boys if you can. And make them 12-pounder Napoleons. Dudley over here under the 2nd Division. And he looks okay. I'm going to see if I can find somebody better. Again, Robert C. Meigs. He's a good one. Terrell has absolutely no fame, but he's got decent stats otherwise. And I'm going to give these guys rifle muskets. And I'm going to give them all proper names. 5th Missouri. Oh, this is the 5th Michigan. 7th Illinois. 14th Pennsylvania. I'll get one more. Some Iowans. So Andrews here, the 7th Corps. I'm going to bring down the park in Memphis, just as a defensive force. They're also going to be the ones building the telegraph that'll connect this guy over here to Memphis. I'm going to wait till he recruits, though. He's already got some men. I don't want to rush him. Once again, please excuse the abrupt ending here. This was sort of a cobbled together episode. I was recording this at the same time as I was recording many of the episodes of the Peninsular Campaign video series that will be posted in parallel with this one. So I sort of got lost in the sauce and lost track of time here. But I am going to end right here, and I'm going to pick up where we left off in the next episode. Once again, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment here or get a hold of me on Reddit. Thank you very much.